Welcome back, Spurs fans, to the 56th episode of Casa De Spurs. Very well might be our last episode. I got my man Danny here. Danny Sandoval, what's up, dude?
What is up? Good to see you, man.
Thank you. It's good to see you, too. It's good to be seen, as always. So we just wrapped, I guess I just finished watching the last season, or the last game of the season here. I had to watch it on delay. So we're recording this on Sunday night. Been a weird weekend for Spurs basketball because we got to take a quick walk down memory lane as I think it's safe to say, like, the greatest Spur to ever wear a Spurs uniform was retired and commemorated into the Hall of Fame, Mr. Tim Duncan. We're going to talk about Tim Duncan. We're also going to talk about kind of how this season ended up for the Spurs and then what lies ahead in their playoff game as the Spurs are playing as the Spurs are going to play Memphis in their first round. It's not a first round. How do you say it? The first game of the play-in? I guess it's
the first play-in game.
Yeah. So, Danny, let's start here. I want to talk happy stuff. I'm rocking my Tim Duncan gear today. All right. I got the 2-1 on.
I see that. I'm rocking my Spurs 32-bit.
Yeah.
Over here.
I dig it. Game over, because that very well might be the theme of the remaining part of the season here.
Insert Goodfellas laughing meme right now.
That really is your meme, and anybody who tries to use that should have to pay you a royalty now. I feel like you've cornered the market.
And I'm not sure if you caught it, but I got some heat this past week for using that meme by a certain somebody in Spurs Twitter who actually has some clout because he happens to be a dad. So, yeah.
That's good.
A Spurs dad, yeah.
All right. I want to unpack that on another podcast maybe, but that's good. So let's talk greatest power forward of all time. Let's talk legendary. Let's talk Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Tim Duncan. Danny, I want to know, before we get into the weeds of everything, what's your favorite Tim Duncan moment? I mean, what is your favorite Tim Duncan moment? Because that's an easy question.
I thought about this. Yeah, well, it should be, right? Or it shouldn't be. It's a very loaded question, only because there's been so many. 19 years worth. But this is my favorite Tim Duncan moment, and I mean, this is actually in his very first season, whenever he led us to the playoffs against the Suns. It was game 1, and I think I even mentioned this on Twitter about a week or two back. And this really is my favorite Tim Duncan moment, because I still remember, we won the lottery that year. I think right away everyone knew, hey, we're going to draft Tim Duncan, this kid out of Wake Forest. And I think at that time, I want to say I was 15 or 16, right? So, I mean, I say kid. He was, 3 years older than I was at the time, 3 or 4 years older. So we got through that whole season, right? From the very first – the preseason, we saw that amazing dunk that he had against the Rockets in preseason, and Charles Barkley said, hey, I've seen the future of the NBA, and his name's Tim Duncan. And we saw the opening game against Denver. He kind of shook the rust off a little bit, and we saw how he and David had that chemistry back and forth, and it was just amazing because we're coming off this really crappy season. We won 21 games. Right. Didn't really have a lot of hope. We had Spurs legend Jamie Fike starting in the lineup a couple of times that year, to where, we just didn't know what was gonna happen. We knew David was gonna come back. We knew Sean was gonna come back. Didn't know much after that. Obviously, Avery was gonna be there, but we didn't know how good Tim was gonna be. So we went through the season, and he ended up being, I think, better than expected. Right off the bat, first team All NBA as a rookie. So, he was a consensus rookie of the year. Well, not consensus. I think there was one idiot media member out there who voted for Keith Van Horn. But the very first game, the very first playoff game, I still remember this. It was on a Thursday night watching against the Suns. We were actually underdogs. We were actually underdogs that playoff series, starting on the road. He had an awful first half. And we were struggling. I think we go into halftime down 8. Team was not looking good. And back then, we're talking about a starting lineup of Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Avery Johnson, Vinny Del Negro, and Sean Elliott, right? So we're like, hey, you know what? Halftime's not, or the first half isn't looking very good. By that time, we're kind of expecting, like, you know what? I've seen the story before. We're going to go down 0-1, starting off on the road. Probably not going to win on the road. Have to come back and force game four. Because remember, back then it was the best of 5, so they could have swept us, right? Yep. So instead, they come out second half, and Tim dominates the second half. Yeah. He scores, I think I want to say 28 points in the second half. And there was this one period of time, and this is classic. This is back whenever Kevin Harlan was still like the voice of the NBA at that time. Remember those good old Thursday night TNT games? He'd come out, and you just had that fiery voice where, I mean, he would like just come out with these things like, "Oh, he's in fuego" and stuff like that, right? So, I mean, he was on the mic that night. I forget who his partner was. I think it was Scott Hastings was the sideline reporter. I forget who his immediate partner was, though. But I remember he was so jacked up. He was so pumped up, excited to watch Tim dominate. Yeah. Hot Rod Williams, Antonio McDyess, and anyone else that the Suns could throw at him. And there was a point, I think Tim had scored like 12 points in a row. And it was at that point in time, I watched that and I knew, I was like, you know what? He's going to lead us to the promised land. He's going to lead us to a point where we never have known before as Spurs fans. And he had those moments throughout the season also. I think he had a couple of really big games against the Jazz that year. And the Jazz were always our nemesis that year. I mean, throughout that whole 90s period, they would always knock us out in the first, second round. So I think he went in and led us into to Utah a couple of times. We won some road games. He had a really big end of the year against the Jazz, I think in 99. But, I mean, this was 98 still. So, whenever he led us to that first playoff win on the road in Phoenix after having an awful first half, I knew. I was like, you know what? This guy's going to do it. That is my favorite Tim Duncan moment, I think, of any moment.
Tim Duncan on the scene. I like it. You know, that's a good one, because I was going back and forth since I was going to ask this question. I was going back and forth about what my response would be. My first inclination was to say the 2008 double overtime victory against the Suns, where Tim hits the 3, right? But I'm actually, since you're like at the beginning of Tim Duncan's career, I'm going towards the end of Tim Duncan's career. My favorite Tim Duncan moment is actually the interview that he gave going into the 2014 NBA Finals, where he basically said, "We're going to get it done this time." And it was like a goosebump moment for me, because I feel like the Spurs don't really break the fourth wall very much. Like, they don't really talk about what all the fans are talking about. And around that time, like 2013 was like when people really were starting to have like conversations on Twitter. And so this new version of like fandom was alive, and everyone was talking about their run after getting beat in 2013. The Spurs fans were talking about like, this team's for real, but like the team wasn't really acknowledging it. And then to have like Tim Duncan freaking acknowledge it, like, we're going to get it done this time. I think if I had the ability, I probably would have gone and bet everything that I owned that the Spurs were going to win that series. I just remember just feeling like and telling, like, I was in the Navy at the time and I had a bunch of Miami Heat fans, and just telling them like, no, I promise you the Spurs are not going to lose this series. Like, I promise you they are not going to lose back-to-back in the finals. And of course, we all know what they do. They beat the brakes off the Heat in what was arguably the best performance of basketball that this league has ever seen.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about the thing I want to address, though, is we're not just talking about a guy who's in the Hall of Fame, Danny. We're talking about one of the all-time greats. I mean, I have Tim Duncan as high as number 3 on my list. There's probably a smidge of homerism. I put Jordan at the top. I put Bill Russell at number 2, just because of how he transcended his generation of basketball and won that many titles. But I can understand people not having Bill Russell there. And I put Duncan there for 3 because he was so good for so long. That said, there's a chance maybe LeBron might overtake him as the 3rd, but I have Duncan. Yeah. I'm comfortable putting him there at 4. I don't know how you could reasonably put Tim Duncan outside of your top 5 all time, but I'm just kind of curious where you have him, and how nice is it that we have one of the all-time greats that wears our team's favorite uniform.
That's so nice, and that's not anything to take for granted, because I think about franchises like the Hornets and franchises like the Pacers or the come on, let me think.
The Orlando Magic,
the Bobcats, the Magic, right?
Yeah.
Even the Nets. So you have franchises out there that have been around a long time. They don't have a top 10 or 15 or even 25, heck, even 50 or 100 top player in the NBA throughout the whole period of time. So to think about and debate and say, hey, potentially the greatest Spur of all time could be either top 2 or 3 on the all-time list. That's something to really be thankful for. So I think for me, Jordan's definitely at the top, right? Especially after watching The Last Dance last summer. I think that kind of again ingrained among all of us that he was just the greatest of all time. Just his persona, the way that he demonstrated his leadership on and off the court, and the way he was just a dog. He was ferocious whenever it came to wanting to beat everybody in his path. I actually, it may be controversial. I oscillate between having LeBron and Tim as number 2 and 3. I think at this point, I hesitate to say, but I think I'm going to put LeBron at number 2 only because longevity, right? So he comes right out of high school, has all of the weight of the world on his shoulders as far as just expectation wise. Since he was like 15 or 16. Right. Already having that mantle of saying, hey, he's going to be the next great one. And he was. He came out of high school, and he didn't lead the Cavs to the playoffs, I think, until his second or third season, which, I think that's kind of, again, something that we can talk about with Tim. Like, he made the playoffs every year, even whenever he had teammates like Chucky Brown and Samaki Walker and Roger Mason Jr. and Keith Bogan. Yeah, he still made the playoffs.
He was still there.
Maybe that's a knock on LeBron's career, but you just have to look at the longevity, the fact that he's still probably either the second or third best player in the league right now at his age, and the fact that he's going to come back and play for the Lakers and probably advance at least to the second or third round. Yeah. So I think that's why I put him at that point, but Tim's no lower than 3 for me. Yeah. And I think, again, you have to go to his stats and the fact that he took his team every year to the playoffs. Every year. He did not miss the playoffs.
And the other thing too is, like, I was having this discussion last night on Twitter with some folks. Like, it's not just that Tim, he won 5 titles over the course of a 19-year career, but they were considered by at least the league. I feel like the media tried to hate on these guys for forever and talk about, they're done. But people who are worth their salt, like the players in the league, coaches in the league, opposing teams, opposing organizations, like, they knew that the San Antonio Spurs were a threat as long as Tim Duncan was there. And they were never like, oh, well, we'd rather play the Spurs. Like, it was always like, do we really want to go play the Spurs in the playoffs? That it was that for that long of time. And going from 99 to when did he retire? 2017?
2016.
2016. Like, that's a long time to be good for that long, and to not have like missed seasons or to not have like a missed playoff series, and to do it out of a small market, and to do it without like sustaining like a real major injury as well. Like, I don't know how you ignore all that. He was consistently good. He was consistently a great teammate. He embodies greatness. So I can understand why somebody would want to put LeBron James over his, and he very well might. I want to see how LeBron finishes his actual career, like where he actually finishes. But right now, as it stands today, with Tim Duncan having a completed career, he's ahead of LeBron, and LeBron has to pass him. He might pass him, but I don't think if LeBron retired today, I don't think I can put LeBron James ahead of Tim Duncan. Just for the
I agree with that.
longevity.
That's a good point.
So he's in the hall now. That's great. I did think it was a pretty cool moment whenever they had, he was thanking, I think, Popovich, and then they also put up just for a brief second like a split screen where it was Duncan, Popovich, and then it showed Manu and Tony in the third little shot there, and it was like, oh look, here's 4 Hall of Famers, like all 4 of these guys.
Yeah.
And I know that I've been pretty petty towards Tony Parker, but I don't see how you don't put that guy. Yeah, just a little bit. I saw they announced the new class of Hall of Famers, and Tony Kukoc is going in. And I was like, oh, Tony Kukoc is going in.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay, well, J.R. Smith has better stats than Tony Kukoc, so
yeah. I wonder who Tony Kukoc's person that's going to be introducing him. Is it going to be Michael or Scotty? Who do you think?
I think it's going to be Michael. Michael has to.
Yeah, I think so too. But remember that whole story with Dream Team back in '92, how they hated Tony Kukoc. They took that guy. Turns, like saying, you know what? No one's guarding him but you and me, because we're going to make sure that Jerry Krause understands that he does not deserve any more money than us. Poor so Tony. that would be interesting.
Maybe that's why he's getting this nod. But anyways, if he's in, then of course Tony Parker's getting in. Come on, man. That's definitely good.
And you know what? Yeah, I don't get some of these people that argue, right? That say, you know what, Manu Ginobili doesn't deserve to be in. I mean, this is the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. Right. Maybe, taking my Spurs homer glasses off, maybe I can say, you know what, if it's just the NBA, the National Basketball Association Hall of Fame, maybe he doesn't deserve to be in. But I mean, even with his NBA career, I still think he deserves to be in. But then you take in the whole Argentinian team. Yeah, I mean, the World Basketball Championships, the Olympics. I mean, there's no doubt that Manu goes in.
Right. I think so too. I think these guys are a lock, and not just that, but just, I mean, something speaks to legacy. And I'm going to transition this right now towards the kind of the end of the season, because I think that's been one of the main reasons why this has been such a frustrating season. It's been necessary. We all kind of knew this was coming. I feel like after the Spurs won their last title in 2014, that was kind of like, we all just had a moment where we were like, okay, this is coming to an end. Like, even though there was the Kawhi and Zaza ankle, and even though there was, other stuff that took place after the 2014 title, like, we started to see the end. And now we're in the dog days here as Spurs fans. And the reason why it stings so much is because we had actual Hall of Fame legends that ran our franchise. And now we might have that. Like, we might have some of these guys that end up making a Hall of Fame, and who knows, but the season was I think you have him like top 15 all time or something like that. But I mean, look, your boy Lonnie had a couple chances in the last 48 hours to make some noise.
Well, hey, just real quick, I mean,
I think he had 0 points on Saturday night.
I was heated at Drew Eubanks. I mean,
Drew Banks is
in the
kind
opening
of a fun
minutes,
nickname, by the way.
Right? I mean, it just makes sense. Drew Banks.
That just kind of fell into Bill Land's lap, and he's been kind of rolling with it.
Yeah. So I was heated whenever he ran into Lonnie, and I'm gonna just go ahead and chalk that whole weekend up to Lonnie not playing well, to just the fact that Drew Banks hit Lonnie early on and messed up his leg, and I hope he's fine. I'm actually surprised he played today, but I was too. I'm gonna chalk it up to that.
And in total fairness, like, I was hoping that Lonnie was okay. Like, it's obvious that Lonnie's a guy that really depends on his athleticism, and a little bump like that, especially to the knee. I don't fault him that much. 0 points is a tough pill to swallow, especially in a game without DeMar DeRozan, especially whenever he got 5 assists, and I think he missed 9 shots, but anyways, the entire season was kind of frustrating. And I think we said it a couple weeks ago, that Boston Celtics game was really kind of like where they kind of checked out. And once the 10th seed became like, you're not going any higher than 10, you're not going any lower than 10. This last week of the season has really just been kind of a formality, kind of just gearing up for the Grizzlies. And we saw that today in this game, in the second game against the Suns, where the Spurs could have won that game, maybe. But it was like both coaches, like Pop and Monty Williams, were like, "You're good. We're good. Okay."
Yeah.
And then the E-League guys. And then you have Eton Moore, who's hitting a game-winning 3 over like Quindary Weatherspoon. Like, that's how that game ended. So try not to take too much of it. But what I want to know from you is this. Look over the total season. Look over the totality of the entire season. What's one thing that you loved? like what's one, and it could be a player, it could be a scheme, it could be a development. But what's one thing that you loved, and then one thing that you hated, and then one thing that you're like, I would have liked, I don't hate this, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of, or a little bit, like it didn't quite get there. So one you love, one you hated, and one you're kind of like, I would have liked to have seen that a little bit better.
So it's kind of Casa De Spurs version of F, Marry, Kill. Okay, I got you.
Sure.
So all right. So one thing that I loved was DeJounte Murray's progression, right? Because he's coming off the bubble last year.
Sure.
Last year, first off, last year he was coming off that big injury.
Yeah.
Being out all year. That was really supposed to be his breakout year 2 years ago. He was supposed to be able to come back and really just show, hey, that all defensive team wasn't a fluke. And he gets hurt, he gets injured, he's out for the year. And that was really early on. I think I went to those in preseason. So that kind of forced Derek White into the starting lineup. And I think Derek actually started off that year injured as well. So we didn't have a point guard, I think, for the first probably 2 or 3
Bryn Forbes
months of the season. Bryn Forbes.
Guard.
Yeah, I was going to say Bryn Forbes. God bless him, right? So, but no, DeJounte really came in, and I think he really fortified himself as the point guard of this team, much to the chagrin of a lot of people on Spurs Twitter, because I know there's some haters out there. And I think that article that came out last year with SI really just kind of showed a little bit as far as his background and his history. And I think he kind of has mentioned, hey, I mean, I'm not ready to tell my full story, but just to watch him come this year to, I mean, just to come and play and assert himself as the point guard. And I think consistency, right? Because that's how we measure any kind of player whenever it comes to, hey, you can every once in a while, every game or every third or fourth game, maybe you can pop in 15, 20 points, hand out 7, 8 assists, couple of steals, but can you do it every night? And he had some hiccups along the way. I'm not going to say he didn't, but overall, the consistency that we wanted to see out of him, it really proved itself this year. And I think, unless you just really want to hate hard on him, I think he really did show himself as being the point guard of this team moving forward, and somebody that is not going to want to that you're not going to want to be messed with as far as DeJounte. You don't want to see him on the other side of the court about to guard you, because I mean he's a hell of a point guard. So
career high in minutes, career high in field goal makes and attempts, career high in 3-point attempts, career high in free throw attempts, rebounding. He's up almost 3 rebounds a game, career high in assists, and career low in, or I guess not career lows, but he had lower turnovers and lower fouls. And here's the big thing, man. He's almost 5 points a game more than he was last season. So really was career numbers. I'm with you. I thought he was great. I'll hold a little bit of judgment on the point guard of the future permanently until we really know where the landscape of this team is. That said, I'm not upset at all if he is the point guard of the future moving forward. But give me one now that you hate. What was the one thing that you were just like, this was a major disappointment this year?
Well, I mean, I hate to belabor the point, but I think that we really, especially going into the season, unless you were just a total Spurs homer, which I can sometimes tend to be, even though people might disagree with that based on my my Twitter activity. Unless you were a total Spurs homer, you kind of knew we're going to go into the season. We weren't going to be contenders, right? We might contend for a playoff seed, but I mean, even at that, we're going to be one of the lower seeds. Now, I think we mentioned a few weeks ago, we played above our heads that first 2 months. I mean, we were top 5, top 6 seed. And I think that was even still the case rounding into the new year. I think we even mentioned, right, that, hey, we really didn't fall apart until that COVID deal hit right after that Charlotte game. We're still looking good. We started that road trip looking out really strong. But I'll say this. This is what the one thing that I kind of hated was, hey, we had a really good opportunity this year to continue to fortify and play our young guys and give them that experience that they need. And it's like I mentioned today, even, right? Over the weekend, we saw the young guys play more than anyone. And in fact, today's game, they played pretty much all the second half. And it was fun. It was fun to watch them come back and go back and forth with the Suns. And sure, it was a Suns B, C, D team. but still, they gain that invaluable experience. And it's just like anything. Whenever you're doing any kind of job or anything, the more you do it, the better at it you're going to get. The more that they're on the court, in front of fans, in front of NBA refs, playing with NBA players, you're going to get better. You're going to feel more comfortable. And really, that's what it's about. It's getting that comfortability on the court to where it's not going to be something so overwhelming to where it's like, hey, I mean, I'm really in the NBA. This is really happening to me. No, once they get past that and they can just play basketball and concentrate on basketball, that's what's important for them.
Right.
So whenever you see guys like Devin and Trey and Quindary even and Luka, I mean, I'm sorry to see that he broke his finger a couple of games ago, but those are the kinds of guys that needed that playing time, and we just didn't see it. Now, I will say this, and I think it was really early on. I think I want to say the first 3 or 4 months of the season. I know only because we know Pop, we know how he operates. There was a point in time where I know he was going to send Devin down to Austin. He was going to send him to that G League bubble.
He was waiting for it.
He was, and then remember, Derek got hurt. Derek got hurt. Something happened with him. I think it was his ankle or something happened where he got hurt, or his toe. It was his toe, and he couldn't. Yeah, he couldn't. So he ended up keeping him. And I think that really saved him from going down to the G League again. And he ended up staying. Now, he didn't get the playing time that I wanted to have because, I mean, he obviously he rode the bench a lot. But at least he stayed with us. He got to travel with the team, got to be a part of the team, got to maybe play in some blowouts, a couple of minutes here and there. And really over the last, I think I want to say 3 weeks, he's finally started to play again. And that was after Derek's last injury that kind of held him out for the rest of the season. So that Pop would be the thing that I could pick that I'd hate.
Yeah, I think the development overall was we didn't really get as much development as we wanted to as Spurs fans. It was. I think you're exactly right. I think Popovich would have loved to have sent some guys down to the bubble, but because of COVID, he needed bodies. And it's like in a weird way, like the pandemic, it's kind of got some of these guys more playing time than maybe they would have, but yet we still didn't get enough playing time for some of these guys. It was an all-around frustrating year for development. I guess Greg would say very differently. He would probably say he's thrilled with their development and whatnot, but we wanted to see some big leaps come out of that. Okay, give me the thing here. We've only got a few minutes left, and I want to get to one last piece here, but give me maybe like in like 30 seconds here, what was the one that you thought was like very meh? Like you wanted more of it, but you weren't entirely disappointed. Like you would have liked to seen more, but it wasn't hugely disappointing. What was that?
You know, I think if I could pick anything that's, I mean, meh. It's like today, right? I really thought, and I think even leading up to the weekend, I'm surprised. I think I was the only one who kept on saying this. I'm surprised more people didn't ask about this. But you had to have known, right, that Papa was going to miss this at least Saturday's game for going to the Hall of Fame. I think I would have really liked to have seen Becky coach yesterday's game. And I get the whole, like, hey, you know what, Mitch Johnson, he was the one who scouted the Suns. That's why he's going to go ahead and coach the Suns or coach against the Suns. But I would have given that vote of confidence to Becky to say, hey, you know what, you got this after I leave, whenever that is, whenever I choose to retire, you got this. Only because I don't want to see her leave for someone else. I don't want to see her go to greener pastures just because we were at a stage where we weren't ready to come in. So I'm a big Becky fan. I think she's going to be a really good coach. Every time I see her, that her energy, her spirit, you watch her on the sideline, she's just her energy is infectious. And I think it goes throughout the whole team. I would have liked to have seen her coach yesterday, at least that way, to kind of give her that vote of confidence, like, hey, wink, wink, stick around and you'll have this when we're done.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that as well. That would have been nice. I am going to say my meh this year was your boy Lonnie Walker. And I want to be very clear about what I'm saying. I thought Lonnie developed fine this year. I really do. I think we saw a lot out of Lonnie. I didn't see the jump from him that I feel like I've been promised I was going to see. And I do feel like he had opportunity. He could have had more opportunity. I will say he could have had more opportunity. But he had enough opportunity to have that dramatic jump. He's better than he was. He improved. I'm looking up his stats right now, and I'm going to be quick about this. He averaged 6 points a game last year. He was up to 11.2 this year, and that's on a bench roll. Career high in minutes by 9 more minutes a game, 25 minutes a game. 35% from the three-point line, which ironically was about 5% less than it was last year. However, his attempts were drastically different. He shot almost 5 a game this year as opposed to 2 last year. Did have a lot of turnovers. That's understandable, especially whenever your minutes go up almost a third.
He's handling the ball more. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and he handles the ball more. And plus, he was playing with the second unit, so maybe less caliber players. Again, I'm not upset with Lonnie Walker. I thought he was fine. I thought he had a great year. But it wasn't the jump that I wanted, that I was promised I would get from Lonnie. So he's my meh for this year.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's wrap this up in style. We got about 5 minutes here, but the Spurs are going to play they're going to play the Memphis Grizzlies, which Danny, I think they can beat the Memphis Grizzlies. I think
they can too. I really can.
Yeah, they probably shouldn't. I also think that they are designed to beat the Golden State Warriors because they've got a plethora of guards that they could just throw at Steph Curry and hope that.
I don't know about that one, but okay, keep on going.
Nobody really believes this, but I believe they can throw a plethora of guards at this guy for 4 quarters and win one game.
Yeah.
I don't think they could win the series, but I think they could win one game. But what do you say? Do the Spurs have a chance against the Grizzlies? Can they beat them? Are we we're gonna get a game on Wednesday night? We get one on Friday or Saturday as well.
All right, here's my deal. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm gonna say the Spurs are gonna win on Wednesday.
Okay.
How about that? I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it the Spurs. The Spurs are gonna win on Wednesday. And here's why. I think today there was a perfect blueprint laid out for the Spurs. And really, it was the same blueprint the Spurs used back in the finals in 13 and 14 against LeBron. Let Josh shoot. Let him shoot, all right? I know DeJounte wants to get up in him, and I think that kind of works against him sometimes because with Ja, right, he wants you to kind of get up in him, but that way he can race past you and get to the rim. No. He's going to have to go ahead and say, you know what? I'm going to let you take anything from 19 feet out. You can have it. If you want to shoot threes, shoot all the threes you want. If you make them, hey, we're gonna tip our hat to you, and great. That's just the way the cookie crumbles this time. Let him shoot, because that's what the Warriors did today, and he had what, I think 2 or 3 points. Yeah. So I think that's the blueprint that they need. And you know what? There's gonna be what really disturbs me, or not disturbs, but worries me more. Not really more, because Ja's he's a superstar, right? So, he can really just turn it on Wednesday and get mad over his performance today and be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and just take this thing over. But what I think is something equally as important to make sure and pay attention to is Jonas Valanciunas. And here's why. I was watching him today, and I think Jonas on the offensive rebound or on the offensive boards and just his overall inside presence is going to give Jakob fits. And let's remember this, right? They were former teammates. They used to play with the Raptors together. So I think they're familiar with each other. They know each other fairly well to where there's going to be some familiarity there. Jakob cannot pick up ticky-tack fouls. He cannot pick up cheap fouls. We're going to need him for rim protection to go up against Jonas because you know what? After Jakob, who do we have? We have Orgy and Drew Banks. So, we're going to need to have Jakob in there. He's going to need to play some heavy minutes. I know, yeah. That's what I'm hoping because really, we look back at that last time that Memphis just whipped our butts back to back. He was a really big factor in that. I think he hit like 6 or 7 threes that one game, which coincidentally, he hasn't hit that many whenever he played with us. But I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm even going to tell you the final score of Wednesday's game. Okay. Final score for Wednesday's game is going to be 108 to 103, and it's going to be the Spurs. And I'm going to say DeMar is going to have a really big game and be looking for a big game from Rudy Gay. I'm going to say it now from Rudy Gay.
I think you got a good call on this, and I think people who watch this are going to say that we are homers. But I think that the Spurs
probably.
I think the Spurs are one of the teams they can win one game. They might not be able to win a
series,
but they can win a game. They're good enough to win.
They can win a game.
Go right.
Absolutely.
I would prefer that they have Derek White there, but Lonnie Walker and DeJounte Murray can D up enough, and DeMar DeRozan and Rudy Gay can have one good game, and Jakob Poeltl can box out on the glass enough for one game, and Gorgui Dieng can come in and be a revenge game, and look, all the stars are it's not that difficult for these stars to align for them to win one game against the Memphis Grizzlies. So I don't think Memphis will be like selling playoff tickets yet. I think they got to get through this. It'll be very interesting. It's been a fun season, Danny. It's been heartbreaking at times, but it's been enjoyable, and I've enjoyed you jumping on and filling in for Trace while he was gone. It was a shift for all of us, both fans and players alike. So I was glad you're here. We are going to look forward to this game on Wednesday night. Should it go further than that, then maybe we'll do a podcast next week. Otherwise, we will jump back on and do some draft preview here coming up for what could be the most important offseason in Spurs history.
You know what? I'm going to say we're going to have a podcast talking about that second play-in game. How about that?
I like it. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Let's do it.
Follow us on Casa De Spurs. You can follow me at the Hailstone and Danny Sanders 80 on Twitter. Get in touch with us. Thanks for watching, and always remember, go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go.